Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll show you how to create a dynamic bar line combo chart where the horizontal line relates to the overall average of the sales amount across all these months, January to December, and the bars relate to the month's individual sales amount. Both the line and the bar chart responds dynamically to any combination of slicer filter selections. Let's see how it's done. Okay, so the first step is to organize your worksheets so that you've got your sales data or any data is one sheet, and then create two more sheets, one called pivot, which is going to contain your pivots or pivot tables, and another sheet called dashboard, which is going to be containing your dashboard, which will be the pivot chart, which is based on the pivot table, which in turn will be based on the source data, which is sales data. Go back to sales data worksheet and make sure your data set is converted into a table. I've converted this already into a table, and I've called this table sales. If you go into the design tools, the table tools, and if you look on the left hand side, I've called it table sales. And then what we do is, while we are on the sales data sheet, click on insert on the ribbon tab and click on pivot table. The create pivot table dialog box picks up that the data set called table sales. Fine. So then what we need to do is we need to insert the pivot table in the existing worksheet. So click on this option here, existing worksheet. Click on this button here and click on the pivot worksheet. And click on the cell where we want the pivot table to appear. So I'm going to select cell B2 and click on OK. So Excel has picked up all the fields from the data set. So in this case, we want the order date as the row items, and then we want for the value we want sales. And if you go back to the row items, we don't want quarters, so we can take the quarters out. We don't want the years, so now all we've got is just a month, which is what we want. Then you're going back into the values, sum of sales, click on values, and we want to change the format. We want to change the format to number format. So let's go to click on custom, click on this option here, pounds, which is the custom format, standard custom format. Click on OK, click on OK. So that converts the data set, the values into pounds with no decimals. We'll change the name of the field to something a little bit more descriptive. So we'll call this total sales. And click on OK. And then go to the row items or order date, click on the row order date, and then click on field settings. And in the field setting dialog box, in the layout and print tab, select this option here, show items with no data. Then click on OK. And then you'll see some additional values coming out in the fields for the order date. Just click on this drop down and then remove anything that's not a month. We don't need those. And then for the row labels, we can change that to something more descriptive. We'll call this order month. Okay, and then so the initial pivot table has been created. So what we need to do now is we need to go back to the sales data sheet, and then we need to create a new column at the end of the data set, and we're going to call this overall average. So we call this overall average, and I've not put a space between overall and average, and I'll show you why. This is just optional, but don't enter anything in this column yet. So what we need to do next is go back to the pivot table. Then in this cell here, or any cell outside the pivot table, if we type this formula equals average if, so we're going to select the average if formula, and the range is going to be the sales for the months. We'll fix that by pressing F4, so it's totally absolute. And then the criteria is we want to make sure that the value is going to be greater than 0. So only items where there is a value greater than 0 are going to be averaged. And the average range is going to be the same thing. So we fix that as well. Absolute, press F4. And we can use a format painter and you make sure that the format painter is going to be the same. So as you can see now, so this is working out the average of the items of the total sales by order month. So if you just highlight that and then look here, you'll see that the average is going to be the same, 191,432. Next thing we need to do is go back to the sales data. So the formula cell is B17, and then what we do is we go into the sales data sheet and then we set the formula in the overall average so that it equals the cell reference B17. So click on the pivot sheet, click on the cell reference B17, make it absolute, pressing F4 again, click on the tick here to accept the formula. So what's happened here now is the table has spilled the formula down all the way to the end. Your next step is to create a second formula cell, and I put the second formula cell in B18, and that's under cell reference B17 for the formula that you created earlier. So the new formula is going to be overall average, and we're going to concatenate that with the text function, and we're going to refer the formula cell value B17, and we're going to format it in pounds. As you can see here, you've got overall average, and then you're going to combine that with text using the text function. Next thing we need to do is we need to create a pivot chart based on this pivot table, which is now ready. So click on anywhere, any cell within the pivot table, and then on the menu, click on Insert, and click on the Insert Column or Bar Chart option here, and then click on More Column Charts, and then go all the way down to Combo section here. And this is the chart we want. We want a clustered column line chart. So Excel's picked up that the bar chart is total sales, which is what we want, and the line overall average is the overall average series. And make sure the secondary axis checkbox is not checked. We want to make sure that both series for the bar chart for total sales and total average is referring to the same primary axes. And click on OK, and we just expand that, widen it, and right click on these buttons, any of these buttons, click on hide all field buttons on the chart, and on the, if you click on this plus here, and what we want a chart title, and then we want data labels. Click on the bars only, and then we want the data labels added. We want it in the center, and go into the bar chart, click on the bar chart, then right click on format date series, and the gap width, put it to say 50% or near 50%. And we're just going to change the font color to white, and we'll put that as bold, and we'll make that font size 10. The axes, for the x-axis for the month, we'll make that bold. We'll change the font size to 12, 11. We'll take off the y-axis for the values for the sales, and for the legend, we'll put the legend at the bottom. In the chart, click on the chart title button, and then click on the formula cell, and we want it equal to the second formula that we created in cell B18. So that is dynamic, so it'll pick up the overall average depending on what you select from slices. So what we can do now is leave this as it is. We click on the anywhere within the pivot table, and now we want to insert the slices. So go into design, analyze, go into insert slicer, and we want to select the state, segment, and category. Okay, so these are the three slices that we're going to be using. Just go back into slice options again. Go back into the pivot table, design, insert slicer. We want segment. So we've got all three slices now. Next thing we do is we select all the slices and the pivot chart, and then move it to the dashboard. We'll move the slices on the left, we'll put the pivot chart here. You can expand it as well. So now that the final step of the pivot chart is complete, I'm going to show you how you can use the combo pivot chart line in relation to slicer selection. So click on the pivot chart, and on the plus, I want to reintroduce the y-axis relating to sales. So click on the x-axis and the arrow here. We want to reintroduce the primary vertical axis, which relates to the sales value. So as you can see, the overall average is 191,000, about 200,000, and the biggest buy is 350,000. And to accommodate that, the x-axis goes all the way to 400,000. And go back to the pivot sheet, you'll see that the overall averages were around about 200,000. Let's make some slicer selections for state California, home office, furniture. Now the bars have automatically adjusted themselves, but the bars are all less than 50,000. That's because even though the overall average is now showing correctly 2,292, the overall average is still looking at the overall average for the unselected sales data, which is about 200,000. So to refresh the overall average correctly, what we need to do is we need to go and click on the refresh all button here on the data tab. You can also press Ctrl Alt F5, and that adjusts the overall average in relation to the bar charts. So now it looks okay now. So you've got the bar charts adjusting itself correctly relating to the slices, and you've got the line now which is around about 2,400, which matches the overall average. And so in this way you can see which sales months are below the average overall average and which ones are higher than the overall average. So if you make another selection on here, it'll adjust itself. You need to do the same process again. Thanks for watching. Watch out for my next video.